It's a lot better than second-degree murder. This is a long way different from conviction for an intentional act.
Christopher Husbands has been found guilty of 2 counts of manslaughter in the 2012 Eaton Center shooting. Plus,
I can imagine the pain the family's going through.
As a community, it's good that we can mourn together.
hundreds gather for a candlelit vigil in Brampton to remember Ria Rajkumar. And Netflix is setting up shop in Toronto, a move that will create close to 2,000 jobs per year. A live shot of the University Avenue courts. That's where the jury in the Christopher Husbands murder trial reached its decision after 6 days of deliberations. Good evening, I'm Talia Ricci. Husbands was also found guilty of 5 counts of aggravated assault. Defense lawyers had argued the 29-year-old should be found not criminally responsible, telling the court he was in a dissociative state at the time of the attack. Here's a look at the timeline of this case. More than 6 years ago, chaos and confusion erupted at a bustling food court as a man opened fire at the Eaton Center. 2 dead, 5 injured. The sheer brazenness shocking Torontonians. Early this evening, Christopher Husbands appeared emotionless as the verdict was handed down. His demeanor relaxing when he heard he was convicted for manslaughter, not murder.
It's a lot better than second-degree murder.
This was Husbands' second trial. He was previously found guilty of 2 counts of second-degree murder, life in prison, and 30 years of parole ineligibility. That conviction was overturned by the Ontario Court of Appeal, finding there was improper jury selection. Defense lawyers had argued Husbands should be found not criminally responsible, saying he opened fire because of his post-traumatic stress after seeing 2 men who had beaten and stabbed Husbands months earlier. Those 2 men were the ones who died on that day in 2012.
Would we have preferred a not criminally responsible verdict? Yes, we would, but this is a long way different from conviction for an intentional act.
There was agreement by psychiatric experts on Husbands' PTSD diagnosis, but experts were split on whether he could have been in a dissociative state when he fired 14 bullets in the downtown mall. Still, Durstein believes the results of this case send a message about mental health.
I think that in a very real way, there's a lot more understanding that the consequences of PTSD are very substantial, very measurable, and happen to a lot more people than you might imagine, and that is more clear now than it was at the first.
Manslaughter involving a firearm comes with a mandatory minimum sentence of 4 years in prison, but it could be extended to a life sentence. The judge has yet to set a date for sentencing. A candlelit vigil was held in Brampton's Garden Square tonight for 11-year-old Ria Rajkumar. The little girl was found dead in a Brampton apartment last week after an Amber Alert was issued. Her father is charged with first-degree murder. As Natalie Danowski reports, people from all over the GTA came to say goodbye.
It was filled with heartfelt songs and prayers from every major religion. Young and old packed into the square, standing for over an hour in the cold, holding a candle for Ria Rajkumar. Even though she stopped dancing with them years ago, members of her former dance troupe stopped by.
Very happy kid. We just wanted to show our respects to her.
Complete strangers also came, many parents shaken by what happened.
It hit home because it's crazy. It's Valentine's Day, it's her birthday, you know what I mean? So we just came by, we're across the street, and I said, you know what, let's come by, show our support, and just give what we can for her, right?
Ria was found dead inside her father's home, which isn't far from Garden Square.
I pass by that house every day, and it's just so sad. I can't put it into words.
In everyone's prayers were messages for Ria's mother. She wasn't there, but she had a message of her own. which was read by Peel Regional Police. She called her daughter a caring child who hated seeing people upset. Ria's story touched so many in the GTA. It was a second vigil for her where hundreds attended. The first was on Saturday in Mississauga near her school. Communities across Ontario have come together, raising nearly $40,000 to help her family with the funeral costs.
Candles will be flickering late into the night for 11-year-old Ria Raj Kumar, alongside messages of hope written on the wall in Garden Square. The final goodbye for the 11-year-old is tomorrow in Etobicoke. Natalie Nanowski, CBC News, Brampton.
A man and a woman remain in life-threatening condition in hospital this hour after a shooting this morning near Lawrence and Caledonia.
It's very scary. Yeah.
It's very, what can I say, disturbing.
This is a residential area, densely populated, so we're going to be here for a while, and we're going to continue canvassing.
Heavily armed officers were outside the building on Lotherton Pathway. The shooting took place in the hallway of the building's 6th floor around 9 a.m. A 24-year-old man and 47-year-old woman were rushed to hospital. Investigators say they're searching for at least one suspect. Meteorologist Colette Kennedy joins us now for a first look at our forecast, and it is kind of hard to believe what's coming tomorrow after another beautiful day like today.
Yes, a beautiful day, a little on the crisp side, but we do have another one of these really sloppy systems moving in. We've been seeing a few of these. This one sort of originating from Texas. Because of that, it's pulled in moisture from the Gulf. It does tend to be a bit of a milder system, though, too, so we'll see a little bit of light snow first, but then that's going to change over. Freezing rain and then rainfall. We'll kind of time it out for you here. So tomorrow morning, southwestern Ontario, just on your doorstep there, but then it starts to spread towards the Niagara area. This is as we're getting towards the lunch hour. It will spread pretty rapidly from west to east across the GTA as we're into the early afternoon. Again, as some light snow or scattered flurries first, changing into light snow. Then as we get towards that afternoon, evening commute, that's where we get into this trouble area of seeing some ice pellets and then some freezing rain coming through. We'll see a few hours potentially of that before the temperature rises just above freezing and changes this over, at least close to the lakeshore for the city, changes it over to a rain or drizzle event, and then it moves out. You can see by Thursday morning it's passed away, but breezy conditions left in its wake. Overnight tonight, -10 with increasing cloudiness, and then we get into that mix, especially after the lunch hour for tomorrow afternoon. We do have some mild days ahead, though, once we get past this sloppy thing. I'll talk about that when I come back.
All right, we'll catch up later. Thanks, Colette.
You're welcome.
Yesterday, we told you about the numerous complaints in Toronto about the city's snow clearing efforts. Well, Toronto's ombudsman says they're monitoring it. Susan Oppler says she and her office are looking into issues around sidewalks, roads, and bike lanes that weren't cleared in a timely manner, as well as the different approaches to sidewalk snow removal in various parts of the city. Our provincial politicians got back to work at Queen's Park today, and it didn't take long before things got heated in the legislature. Our Queen's Park reporter Mike Crawley takes us through what happened.
These cuts came out almost a month ago.
Protests greet MPPs on their return to Queen's Park, both outside the legislature.
We'll organize and shut it down if Ford don't stop the cuts right now.
And inside. Post-secondary students unhappy with the Ford government's changes to OSAP.
I would ask our visitors to refrain from this activity, or you'll be removed.
At least one yells obscenities at Premier Doug Ford.
With a filthy mouth, they should have their mouths washed out with soap.
Ford is no fan of student activists.
Here's an example of indoctrination, what we just saw up there.
In a PC Party fundraising letter last week, Ford said student unions get up to crazy Marxist nonsense.
Young people in colleges and universities across the province are not crazy Marxist, Speaker. They're trying to make ends meet while they're getting the education that they need.
The return of the legislature also marks the return of Jim Wilson, sitting as an independent for the first time in his 28-year career. Wilson is greeted by Ford, the man who fired him from cabinet and forced him out of the PC caucus last fall after an allegation of sexual misconduct. Wilson says he was not interviewed by anyone investigating the claim.
I can tell you that there was a comprehensive third-party investigation done, and to protect our staff members, which is the ultimate thing here. I mean, you know, when people do come forward with allegations, you know, we need to respect that, and we also need to respect their wishes that nothing further be made public.
Ford's friendly handshake with Wilson is prompting some speculation that the veteran MPP could make his way back into the Conservative caucus and cabinet. But the Tories have been quick to throw cold water on that notion. Mike Crawley, CBC News, Toronto.
A concern we have heard over and over from both families and police is that the SIU wastes time and energy investigating the wrong things.
Still ahead, the Ford government is making big changes to how the police in this province are policed. Details coming up.
Justice Tulloch also
One of the bills introduced at Queen's Park today would make major changes to how police are investigated. The PCs say they're undoing what was done by the Liberal government, and they're accusing the former legislation of being anti-police. Lisa Shing has reaction to the proposed changes.
My whole eye was ripped off.
And your nose?
My nose was broken.
Fabian Clark says he still can't sleep after police raided his Scarborough apartment in late November looking for drugs.
He said, "Oh, we don't find nothing in the house. Take the handcuff off him." Then they bring me to the hospital.
He had to have reconstructive surgery on his eye. Now the Special Investigations Unit is looking into the case.
Under Bill 175, our police were presumed guilty until proven innocent.
Today, the PC government announced an overhaul to police oversight in the province, including the SIU, saying the previous Liberal plan to revamp policing was anti-police. The PCs put it on hold when they came into power.
We listened to our frontline officers when they raised serious concerns about the Liberals' Bill 175.
That Liberal bill was the first update to laws governing police services in 25 years that focused on increasing the scope of what the 3 police oversight agencies can investigate, and it added accountability measures. The new bill, tabled this afternoon, narrows the focus of the SIU, which looks into cases where civilians die, are injured, or make a sex assault allegation. The SIU will now only investigate police when a serious injury or death occurs, when an officer fires a gun, uses force, or where there are sex assault allegations. And investigations have to be wrapped in 120 days.
This is a step in the right direction to ensure that the public has the support and the police have the support.
Civil rights advocates disagree. What specifically are you concerned about?
I'm specifically concerned that the voice of community was not centralized. People in community will see this as clearing the table and setting something up that is not in the best interest of the communities.
This one is a complete capitulation to the police associations.
Fabian Clark says the new bill, if passed, will not help people like him.
They could get away with this, and it's just like their arrogance with it. They don't have no compassion.
The Comprehensive Ontario Police Services Act will likely pass since the PCs have a majority. Lisa Shing, CBC News, Toronto.
Experts say there's a looming mass shortage of trained aerospace workers, but a new research hub at Downsview Park may change that. Companies like Bombardier have teamed up with local colleges and universities to use the space. Adrian Chung now with the industry's rebirth right here in our city.
There's a debris field that starts over there, which is where the aircraft first hit the ground.
The plane crash is just a mock one, but the lessons students can learn from it, invaluable.
And then it slid or bounced over to where it now sits right here in its final resting spot.
The study is just one piece of the University of Toronto's Institute for Aerospace Studies, and big plans are ahead to pair their graduate students with the biggest names in the aerospace industry.
The idea of moving to a place where we would see other people working in aerospace every day, I think that would be an enormous benefit to us, an enormous benefit to research in general.
The vision? To build a 130,000 square foot aerospace hub, a place for research and innovation at Downsview Park. Private companies like Bombardier and Safran have joined. So too have schools like Centennial College.
Called the Beatles effect in that sense. You now have the sum of the parts is greater than the individual, where an academic, a professor can be grabbing a coffee and run into someone from Bombardier's engineering team and say, hey, look, we're working on this, what do you think? Oh, 1 second, we can also go over to Centennial's facility and check out a piece of equipment, and a project can emerge from that.
The program has already taken over an original building at Downsview Park with a nearly 100-year history of building aircraft. The consortium driving the idea hopes history will repeat itself.
It now allows us to grow those small companies, allows us to echo and bring a focal point, a gateway, if you want to call it that, to allow us to interact with any training and research needs for the world to see and come and interact.
U of T students played a role in creating the Canadarm and have illustrious graduates like astronauts Roberta Bondar, but they say the industry in this country needs a rebirth.
There was a big expansion in the aerospace industry in the 1980s, about 30 years ago. So unsurprisingly, a lot of the people working in the industry are now in their 50s. So in the next 10 years, a lot of them are likely looking to retire, which means that we need to produce a great number of aerospace engineers and other technical people to replace them.
If the plan stays on track, students will move into the newly minted Aerospace Hub by 2025. Adrian Chung, CBC News, Toronto.
Lights, camera, construction. Netflix is coming to town.
So we're looking at the recently raised 50,000 square foot edge of the building. Well, there'll be two 25,000 square foot stages.
The streaming giant is changing the industry, and Toronto is rolling out the red carpet for them. I'm Ali Chiasson, and I'll have that story coming up.
The weather update is brought to you by Train Extreme Conditions Testing. It's hard to stop a train, really hard. Train, the most reliable heating and cooling brand.
More of the movies and shows you watch on Netflix will soon be made right here in Toronto. The company announcing today it's opening a production hub in the Portlands. Ali Chisson got an exclusive look at the space.
You have to use your imagination. This construction site will soon be the set of a Netflix original. Make that many Netflix originals, because they're moving in.
This is the former Rochester Ferry Terminal. Now that you asked, actually, it's now called the Cruise Ship Terminal. Yeah. And 20,000 square feet of it will very soon belong to Netflix for their head offices here in Toronto.
Yeah, and we're walking by empty offices, everything's sort of set up and just...
Yes, ready to go.
There's no view of the Hollywood sign.
So right now we are looking through the port window at a ship.
That happens to be here.
Who was it who saw this office and was like, it's mine?
Oscar winner Miles Dale saw this office and said, this is my office, I want you to hold it for me. So I said, if you bring the Oscar to one of my parties, then yes, you can have this office.
That's awesome.
Netflix is leasing 4 sound stages from Cinespace and Pinewood, also in the studio district.
We expect these offices to be occupied within about 4 weeks. We expect the stages to be occupied by the summer.
It speaks to the current industry boom, which has been stoked by politicians.
I'm down here with Allison from the CBC. We're freezing right now.
Premier Doug Ford called in the middle of our shoot.
Mr. Premier, thank you so much for the call. I really appreciate it. All the best. All the best. We'll talk again. Take care. Bye-bye. That's so nice.
Wow.
I don't know how he got my cell number. That's amazing.
Mayor Tory is also an ally.
John Tory has gone to Los Angeles, as we said, 3 times in 4 years. Netflix was one of the, the studios in his crosshairs, and sure enough, they followed up.
Yeah, and here we are.
And here we are.
Toronto-based production crews aren't a tough sell.
They're just the best of the best. They're hitting it out of the park. They're the most award-winning group of crews in any jurisdiction anywhere right now.
Also, because it's a foreign digital company, Netflix isn't required to collect or remit federal or provincial sales tax.
There wouldn't be a Netflix production hub if not for the tax credits and the success of the crews in recent years.
The Netflix hub is expected to create up to 1,850 jobs per year. Ali Chiasson, CBC News, Toronto.
Colette's back now with our extended forecast, and I was listening intently to your forecast yesterday, and I remember that after our sloppy Wednesday, there is a bit of a relief this weekend.
Yeah, it's going to be really nice to see our temperatures on the mild side. You may not believe it when I get to the 5-day forecast, and especially nice after lows like we saw this morning. So the overnight temperatures from last night, this is how cold it was. Well, we're still going to be on the cold side tonight, but closer to seasonal. So you can take these numbers and warm it up about 5 degrees in terms of how it's going to feel overnight tonight. We see generally clear conditions until we get a little bit later on tonight, and then the clouds are pulling in. We'll see tomorrow morning that light snow starting in southwestern Ontario, and then as we get to the early afternoon hours, even lunch hour for areas to the west, we'll see the light snow taking over the GTA. Then into the later afternoon, we get into that changeover as the temperature keeps rising, ice pellets, and then some freezing rain. The potential we could see some warnings here. And then the temperature rises above freezing, and all along the lakeshore, it becomes a rain shower event and drizzle, and then it moves on out, leaving windy conditions in its wake for Thursday, but we shouldn't see much more than that. Some clouds to deal with, but it's going to make haste as it goes through. Overnight tonight in southwestern Ontario, still another cold one, so lows -8 to -9. We'll see this starting, of course, earlier, so it's an all-day event. Both the morning and evening commute affected through here, but the highs coming up to 3, so eventually it turns over to rain. At least for tomorrow morning, the commute, although it'll be a cold morning, the commute for the GTA is fine. It's the later one where we get into problems, starting again, as I say, some snow. These temperatures are the afternoon temperatures. They'll come up another degree or 2 as we get into the later evening, and that's why the precipitation is going to change over. This is what I wasn't sure you were going to believe when we take a look at once we get past Wednesday. Thursday, 2 degrees, possibly even 3 degrees. Now, still a cool night Thursday night into Friday, -8, but all kinds of sunshine into Friday, too. And then, okay, yes, it could be a little messy with another system coming in, some mixed precipitation into the weekend, but highs of 4 to 6 degrees. So running well above seasonal as we're getting further on through this month of February, Talia.
That looks pretty good to me. Thanks, Colette.
No problem.
Before we go, here's a story with a happy ending. Last month, street musician and subway busker Jeff Burke lost his beloved bassoon, an instrument he's carried with him for the past 32 years. Burke was on his way home in the Bloorcourt Village area when he left his instruments unattended for a few moments while he went to the bathroom. When he came back, everything was gone. With no leads on the bassoon's whereabouts, a group of Burke's friends and family started a crowdfunding campaign to help buy him a new one. The goal was $10,000, and they've raised close to $15,000. And if that wasn't good enough, today, Burke was reunited with the original bassoon.
They went into one of the back storage spaces, and out comes this man holding my bassoon case. And it was, oh my goodness, I haven't felt happy like it was just overwhelmingly incredible, because I just couldn't, I'd given up hope that I would see it again.
The instrument was turned into the TTC's Lost and Found. A TTC employee saw Burke's story on the news and connected the dots. The rest of his equipment was returned too. And here's one person who is clearly loving the snowy weather. Toronto's own Robert Greenfield created this rink art masterpiece with just his shovel. He calls it the Snowna Lisa. And if you think that's cheesy, on social media, he wrote that it should be hanging in the igloo. Some spot-on dad jokes. I love it. That's our show for you tonight. Thanks for watching. Good night.